All right, everybody, it's the Jere Metcalf Podcast, where top real estate agents tell us how they do it. Today, we have Phil Greely with Realty, Sotheby's International Realty in Seattle, Washington. Phil, it's so good to have you today.
Jere, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. So, go ahead, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got in the business. And side note, the headphones, the professional look, fellow podcaster, welcome.
Yep.
And you take it from there.
Yeah, so I'm in my sound engineer studio, so he helps us put our podcast on like Isaac does for you. So I have all his equipment today. So I've been in the business about 10 years, and I started right at probably the worst time, but in hindsight, it was the best time. So 2008 was when I got my start, and it was an adventure. So before that, I went to school to be a high school English teacher, and just a big culmination of, I realized I didn't like teaching. Once I did my student teaching, I couldn't get a job right away, and I got a taste of corporate life. I just sort of opened my mind to what else was out there. Real estate was interesting, and I had a friend that was kind of poking me to move forward with real estate, and I was newly married in 2007, and we were resident managers of an apartment building. And so I would collect these rent checks. It was like $50,000, $60,000 of gross rent every month in this building. And I said, I want one of these, so how do I do this?
Right.
And I took the owner out to lunch. And by the end of the lunch, we sort of came up with this idea that in order to learn the market, figure out what opportunities are out there, I should get my real estate license. Mm-hmm. And so all of those things combined turned into me sort of taking the plunge into residential real estate in 2008.
So in the lunch with the apartment owner, that was in 2007?
It was, yes, right, leading up to sort of my decision of what should I do.
So you got into real estate as a recession. Were in 2008, we kind of knew. 2007, we were in denial, but 2008, we knew it. I mean, that's the same case in Seattle, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, so I officially launched in March of 2008, and all the experienced agents were complaining, right, because things had softened.
That was nice, wasn't it? Yeah.
Right, and then I finally sold my first house after 6 months in September, and I think it was days later, one of those big insurance companies, Lehman Brothers or whatever it was, AIG, they collapsed. So it was just like days after my first closing, everything hit the fan for real.
Wow.
And it was a roller coaster.
What a
for
way
sure.
to get started. Yeah.
I know.
So a lot of people say that's a good way to get started, because you kind of started while we were all down, and then you build your business up from that. And, you talk about how you're a very successful agent now, but you hear all these stories like, I became an agent and I was number one in the office after 1 month of selling real estate. That wasn't your deal. You were a kind of like, Jeff Wilson talks about the tortoise and the hare. He's like, I'm the tortoise. He's in Washington, D.C. He is a top agent. Like, he is very humble. He does not speak highly enough of himself, but he talks about how he got there just one consistent step at a time. So share a little bit with us about, you're breaking into the market into this lovely recession and all the agents around you complaining, and where it went from there.
Well, it was alarming, I guess, and scary sort of at times, because, all of these experienced agents that, when you get in and you don't know anything, everybody looks like they're way more successful than you, right? Mm-hmm. That's the feeling, the perception. But it felt like that for about 1 month, and then everybody started short selling their home, the agents, right, or losing their homes and getting out of the business. And so there were many times where I would come home and say to my wife, just like, I don't know, what am I doing? This isn't working as fast as I thought. I was trained, and I sort of followed the ninja selling system. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I've heard about it. Mm-hmm.
And similar to people might follow Tom Ferry's tactics or Brian Buffini's, ninja selling is a system, a program.
Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, basically it's old school referral marketing. So grow your database, be in touch with them, and the more you're in flow with more people, and then business will come when they're ready to make a decision. And it's not even like you have to ask necessarily. It's more you provide value consistently. You provide yourself consistently. You don't have to talk real estate, but if you're top of mind with them, then they're going to think of you when it's time to buy or sell a house. And so that's very much a sphere thing. And so that's how even to this day, that's kind of the bulk of my business is sphere and referral. So that was what I just sort of like plotted one foot after the other during this difficult time, going to coffee appointments, saying yes to every birthday party that I'm invited to.
Right. You say,
and just being present.
Right. I was going to tease you and say you say that with such joy. I think you do like a lot about this business, though. I tease you because I feel your pain on that one. At least when it comes to the kids' birthday. I love my kids, everybody. You know that. But the kids' birthday parties aren't my favorite. Now, do you have kids?
I do. I have 2. So I didn't have them at the beginning. So many opportunities.
So you got into a business like ours in the recession, and then you decided to have kids just to top it off.
Yeah, exactly.
I totally interrupted you, though. Finish what you're saying.
No, it was just it took about 4 years before I finally made an income that I thought, okay, this could work. It's not what I want, but this could work. And I see the steps that I need to take to even grow from there. So, perseverance. I think patience is one of my characteristics that helped me through that time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with delayed gratification, which is totally what it has been. So
right. Well, in the long run, I think that's going to pay off because obviously you've gotten a very consistent, steady, strong business that a lot of people really aspire to and dream for. That's doing really well. What would you say is your best of all? Like, obviously you came in with Ninja generating referrals. What have you found is your strongest source of referrals?
I mean, I would say for me, the referrals didn't really roll in until I had some transactions under my belt.
So
right?
How'd you get those transactions without referrals?
A lot of floor time.
Okay.
Friends that were willing to trust without, any proof, sort of.
Right.
And family. So those early transactions with friends and family, then they now believe, right? It's not just that they see the business card.
You're not another person with a real estate license because there's so many of those.
And they've experienced it, right? So they can now trust that they can refer to someone else. And so that was probably why it took so long, is that first 9 months, 1 transaction, second year, 7 I think second and third year were both 7 or 8 transactions each.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like finally after, I had almost 20 transactions, it was like, okay, people are starting to refer me and things are kind of rolling in without as much effort. But
right. And now you've been in it for how many, 10?
A little 9.5.
9.5 years. So how many transactions are you doing now?
So I do about 24, 25 a year.
That's huge.
And that in Seattle, that's kind of around, at least for my price points, I'm working on getting those up, but around 15 to 16 million per year.
That's great. That's a big, right. That's a big 24 transactions a year is up there. That's a lot. So do you have a team?
No team. So that's, I'd love to pick your brain at some point about this too, but just myself, I
pick everybody else's brain about it, so go for it. No, but go ahead. Yeah.
So I'm a solo agent. I have a transaction coordinator that's contracted.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have to do as much with the paperwork, which is the best check I write every transaction.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have some help with social media, marketing, digital marketing. And that's about it. For various projects like the podcast, which we can talk about, we pay Brett Brett to help us with that. But.
Yeah. So, and that would be, I think you started that podcast as a way to feed your business, and it's become a huge, there's positioning and prospecting. Obviously you started this business doing a lot of prospecting, getting a lot of business through a little bit of family and a lot of prospecting. And then you've gotten into it. You're doing 20-something transactions a year on your own. And you've created a podcast, which is a positioning mechanism. All right, I'm going to pause for a minute, for just a minute to edit this out. Did you hear that static, Phil?
I hear a little bit of background noise, but it's not bad.
Okay, there was just like major static. Isaac, if I hear that again, do I need to just keep, so I don't need to worry? I just wanted, because we want sound quality around here. As you know, I won't stop again. That's why I'm at the studio. Exactly. Thank you. Because we've had issues on the sound stuff. We're working on it. But anyway, okay, so where was I? What was I talking about? I was talking about 24 transactions a year, podcast. Okay, so you'll figure out how to edit this, Isaac. But anyway, so you've got you've started out prospecting, And then you've branded yourself. If you're doing 24 transactions a year, you're well known. People are coming to you probably pretty consistently. So now you're in a real opportunity to position to keep that going. And in positioning, prospecting versus positioning or branding yourself is this incredible podcast. It looks like you've got about 2,000 downloads an episode, which is, most people aspire to that and never reach that. That's incredible. Tell us, how long have you been doing that, and how did you start that?
A little over a year. So we launched August of 2016. And at that time, I wasn't with Sotheby's. So we can talk about that transition too. But
definitely.
There's a colleague not in my office, but just at my company. And he was a friend, and I knew I wanted to start a podcast, but there's lots of technical hurdles, and just getting something like that, getting something like that launched. I just wanted a buddy, so I said, "Hey, do you want to do this with me?" And we took it and ran. And it's a local podcast that it's about Seattle, and we interview people about their stories, basically. And so a lot of business leaders, a lot of business owners, people running a nonprofit, or just, we have one coming out soon that's just a mom, right, that lives in Seattle and has 4 kids, and what's it like to be here with a big family.
Seattle. Yeah, I love it. That's just great for people moving here.
The goal is to provide content for people that are like way up in the funnel, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not interested in buying a home, but they're interested in where they live and how to be a better member of society, kind of, or enjoy their city more. And so that's sort of who we're trying to attract. And total positioning thing. I think we have one transaction that leads directly back to the podcast, but other than that, it's just a lot of, hey, I heard your episode with so-and-so, or I saw you recorded another podcast, and people know we're doing it. And so it's been fun.
That's a great way to build a name in the city of Seattle, and wrap real estate around it, or who knows what else that might turn into. So, and how often do you do those episodes? Once a week, once a month?
We're totally inconsistent. We shoot for twice a month.
Phil, you can't do that. You got to be like clockwork. Isaac will tell you.
I know. We're bad, but we're also it's a labor of love. But so we do, when we're rolling, it's 2 a month every other week. And the first season, so we just launched season 2, we didn't talk real estate hardly at all. And then season 2, we're slipping in a mini episode in between each of our guest episodes, where it's like 5 to 10 minutes of us just saying, here's what the market's doing, here's a story from our career. Yeah,
you've got to do that. Yeah.
So
that's awesome. Interview your clients. Anyway, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What were you saying about you're going from? So you're transitioning into the real estate component. Okay.
Correct. We were a little I was sensitive that I just didn't want to come across as once you know me a little bit more, I'm not like a hard salesman.
Oh, you got to get over that real fast. You got to get past that. So
we're getting past it.
That's all. I mean, just like, we're not on this for Jere to give her like motivational speeches, but I will say to our audience and our real estate agents is that what we do and what you do with that podcast, in what we do just in selling people homes, is so valuable. And we think everybody's got a real estate license and you pick and just get on Zillow. But the perspective we have to offer and the stories we have to tell, the value behind that emotionally, and not just on an emotional level, but on a transactional level, on a giving them what they need to make the right decisions and to give them the support and to make it happen and solve their problems, is so huge. And they know it, so we should know it too. Right. And you get all that, but no, I think it's incredible what you're doing. Yeah,
it's hard to remember that and apply that. I remember earlier in my career, there's always a discussion about adding value, right, to your clients.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to make a call, don't make a call unless you're giving them value. And it's hard to figure.
Thank you.
In our heads, we get into this thought process of like, well, it has to be a fact about the market or something.
Yeah.
But it's us that's the value, right? Like,
exactly.
They can get the facts online, but they want a relationship with us. They want us to deliver that. And so we just being our friend.
Well, it's I saw it go on the market and I thought of you, or, hey, I'm running by this house today. Would you like to preview it with me because it's relevant to your market and your neighborhood? And suddenly you're building value and competence. That's it. It's very simple business that we're in. It's just a matter of consistency and delivery.
Totally.
So love it. So coming into this business, I love your path and your story because it gives us so many people come into this business and they don't stick with it, and they don't have the consistency that you do, and they move on and they're back in their job that they hate, or some of them have gotten lucky, maybe anyway. But I say that to say, you get so many people come into this business that give up in a year or two, or get a license and hardly ever tap into it. So I love your story of you get in it. It's not a matter of if I get lucky, I'll do it, because a lot of people do, but it's a matter of get in it, find your passion, find what you're good at. All that being said, what was your tipping point? Like, what do you think it was? Was it time, or was there something specific that transitioned you from doing okay to being a really great agent?
I think it's just time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't ski anymore, but I used to ski when I was a little kid. And I remember my instructor saying, you just need time on the snow, right? Like, you're going to be bad. It's okay, but you just have to be out here trying it. And ultimately, I think that was it. And I don't know. I mean, I think once I finally had that year in year 4 where I felt like, okay, this is an income and a career now versus just a hobby. Mentally, that was a big tipping point for me to say, like, okay, I've done it. I can do it.
Yeah.
And then the mental game is a whole nother conversation. So after year 4 to year 6, I kind of produced a little bit more than I kept growing a little bit, but not in huge increments.
Mm-hmm.
I had a real estate coach at the time. And so I was geared, going back to my story, like I was geared to be a high school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, I was expecting to make, it's not all about income all the time, but like in my head, I was geared to make, $40,000, out of the gate. And so I just got in this mindset of like, okay, well, I don't need to grow anymore, or like I can't grow anymore because I don't deserve it, or whatever was in my head.
Yeah. Like, this is what you're supposed to make, so this is what I'm going to make.
And I'm making way more than I ever thought I would, so let's just ride this out, right? But my coach kept being in my ear of like, you're capable of so much more, and not even talking about income, right? Just like, get out of your head that you're this.
You put yourself in a box. Get out of it.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Like,
people. And that was the tip.
Go ahead.
That was my tipping point where I finally, like, I was in the industry's eyes, I was producing. I was a solid agent. But I think that was year 7 or so finally, 6 maybe, where I finally said, okay, like, sky's the limit. Let's go for this baby. And that was where I finally feel like
I think we all kind of, because everybody it's human nature. I think there's like something about stability and what we associate. We have to have a picture of ourselves. So be very careful what that picture is that we draw. And ask ourselves every once in a while, what's the box I'm putting? What is that box I'm putting myself in, and how am I going to get it? What am I going to do next to push myself to the next level to get outside of that box? And just for the record, you know this, but it's not even this business. At some point, it's not about the money. It's about the growth. It's about the experience. It's about the relationships that we all get as a result of the privilege and opportunity that we have of being in this business and being able to do it.
Well, and who wants to be the same year after year? And so it's one way that we sort of keep track is with income, but it's about doing things more efficiently and having more personal time. And like, you can do everything, you can always improve yourself. And so that's another one of my mantras.
And having fun. There's an agent in our office that's his name is Austin Landers. He's going to love that we're bringing him up. And he's 20. I don't even know if he's 25 yet. And the guy does crazy, crazy deals. He does a lot of real estate. And he has a lot of mentees in our office. And we have an office. And he has this big thing on the wall that says, make it easy by making it fun. This job is fun if we just let it be. Just allow it to be fun and have a good time. So I think in the beginning, consistent, slow start. Now you're breaking through. You're starting to position. You're doing, like I said, 20-something transactions a year. What do you think makes you stand out over the competition?
That's a good question.
Especially in Seattle. There's got to be a lot of real estate agents in Seattle, because that's a great
lot of real estate
industry.
Agents, a lot of techie, very smart, sophisticated people.
That's where Bill Gates lives. Or he has a house. That's his main residence, isn't it?
Yeah, east of Seattle, but yeah, basically.
And who's the founder of Starbucks?
Howard Schultz. He's
Howard
there.
Schultz.
Jeff Bezos. He has, I'm sure,
One
lots
of my
of
friends
houses.
will kill me for bringing that up because of political persuasions around here. Anyway, now I'm being inappropriate.
Howard Schultz sold the Sonics, the Seattle Supersonics.
Okay.
So he's not well loved here either. So.
Oh, good. I don't know if I'm going to put my life at risk if I confess I stole by Starbucks. And then anyway, but I mean, just a lot of people know who lives in Washington, but I just want to remind, like, that's who we're talking to. That's the market you're in. So there is a lot of competition there. But anyway, you were talking about,
and we're in this unprecedented season of growth where I think we have somewhere around a couple hundred people a day moving to Seattle.
Amazon.
And we only have Amazon exactly.
Because of
and
Amazon,
there's lots of,
right.
Because Amazon, Google's they're building a new headquarter campus here, and they're going to drop another few thousand employees. So around a couple hundred people per day moving to Seattle. And last I checked, it was around 30 housing starts per day are applied for. Mm-hmm. So we're just exponentially out of inventory every day. It's getting worse.
So what do you do about that as a real estate agent?
I mean, it's going back to like always improving. I'm constantly putting my heads together with my agent friends, figuring out what are best practices to get offers accepted. Mm-hmm. Consistently going up against anywhere between 3 and 15 offers on properties. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, like it's understanding the tactics at work and mm-hmm. then explaining it as best you can to your clients because they're putting themselves out. No contingencies on any offers if you want to get them accepted for the most part. So
so they actual cash deals, or you're just getting loans and taking on the risk yourself.
Correct. Yeah. So a lot of people are financing. I mean, there are cash deals for sure, mm-hmm. but the normal person is getting a loan, right? Mm-hmm. And so so no financing contingencies, no appraisal contingencies. We're pre-inspecting. So once you're a non-refundable earnest money. So mm-hmm. once you're in and under contract, you better hope it works out. And so we have to do a lot of education up front. And that's, I think, the answer to the question is lots of explaining, educating our clients.
You need to do a podcast on that.
Prepared for going into the process.
Right. You're like, thanks, Jere. I got my podcast covered. But that's really, and that's again in our business, like we forget how fascinating what we do is because we're doing it every day. So on that, so you've got low inventory. Do you have ways, or do you guys develop ways of, I'm sure there are ways or situations in which you can find inventory before other people know about it. Do you have any practices you're implementing for that yet, especially with your colleagues?
We're all super on high alert with, like in Washington, we can't do, we can't sell a list, like no pocket listings. Mm-hmm. So we do, I would say like the more we can educate sellers about mm-hmm. their value on their home, people, I think they understand the headlines have been, about big appreciation, but they don't really understand the numbers. Mm-hmm. And then also too, finding we're really working hard to explain and create custom plans for people that want to move up, because that's the hardest. That's the people that are stuck right now, is that they are sitting on a ton of equity. They are able, in theory, they're qualified to go buy a bigger home, but, they can sell their home in a week, but they can't find their next one for several months. And so if you have a family and you have jobs and all that stuff, the transition to moving up is really difficult. So having a lot of conversations with people about how we can go about making that easy for them. And then that leads to, like, if you can provide a plan and a pathway forward, mm-hmm. then that leads to inventory. But yeah, lots of going back to that ninja thing.
How do you want to, I don't want to interrupt, but just finish what you're saying and then I'll ask my question about.
Well, just going back to the ninja referral marketing thing is like, if you're in touch with your people, you're adding value to them and you're just explaining, answering questions and being available. That's my tactic for.
And how do you, in Atlanta, for example, we have the same issue, but it's not nearly to the extreme of what you have is, but in our market, I just find stuff before it hits the market, or we're a little bit patient, but there's not nearly the fast moving pace that you've got we don't have the kind of numbers moving into our city that you do. And then you're probably limited in your real estate too. Right. So what give us an example. I mean, is it, is there any kind of an intricate plan or something clever you've done before to make something happen that helps us come up with more ideas in our own businesses?
I don't know if it's super clever, but, probably stuff that you're familiar with. So, requesting or demanding. So sellers can demand almost what they want. And so getting a 60-day rent back from the buyer of their home for free usually is something that we work on. So that buys you, the closing time on their house plus 60 days. That's 3 months to go find and secure something. I've put a lot of families into temporary, just like go find an apartment that fits your family. We'll make it
but
for a
laying
short
it
amount
out,
of time.
yeah, and just laying that out for them. They're like, hey guys, it's not like you have to sell and buy and overlap it and all this. Like, here's your options. Just laying out options for people and telling them, pick your option, or we can see what happens, and you can take, if the path forks, these are the two directions it's going to go in, and pick one.
Right. I have this dream of buying a duplex that could have, one tenant long term, and then the other one I just have stayed, with furnished, and I can put clients in it for a temporary amount of time to get them.
Okay, I love it. Seriously, now my poor husband, every time we move, I come home like, hey, we're moving. This is the next move. I'm like, that's a great idea. It's funny about this business. Everybody wants to get, so, I had a recent interview with Michael Carucci in Boston, and he's doing, multi-million dollar deals. He was just on a jet with a client that is on the phone with Mike Zuckerberg on the way to I think it was on the way to Aspen or whatever. But you know what? He's not complicated. He's not doing complicated stuff. He's just doing a really good job, and he's incredibly authentic and has incredible integrity and goes beyond the call of duty. And that's it.
Right.
That's it. I mean, same thing as you. It's like authenticity, integrity, very simple. It's just a matter of taking the time and being in touch with their clients and delivering that value that they hire us for. So I love it. What do you wish you knew coming into this business that you know now?
Wow. There's a lot of things. I didn't,
that box you drew for yourself, you wish you'd seen it sooner, maybe?
Yeah. I mean, I wish I'd truly so a few things come to mind. Totally. What you just said. I wish I had understood my potential, from the get-go. I wish I would have understood how all-consuming the business can be. I think there's times where I've certainly just like obsessed over my work, and to the detriment of maybe not, to the detriment of my family and to my own personal life. But so now I'm more willing to like set work aside when I come home and have that separation. I think too, like I wish I would have just known. If I had known how long it would have taken, I could have. I think it would have taken. I would have done different tactics and strategies at the beginning. I kick myself like, why wasn't I podcasting 10 years ago, or whatever form? I don't even know. I think podcasts are around on your you could download them to your iPod, but
we were doing teleconferencing back then, actually. Yeah, you like give everybody a number. I don't even. That's what I think we were. I think that's what was going on 10 years ago. I remember doing that.
Yeah, and YouTube was brand new, right? Like, why wasn't I on it? Why didn't I start my video
like
channel?
Gary Vaynerchuk, for crying out loud. I think I mention him every episode, but he's so relevant.
Totally.
I think we're the same age, and he's our age. He's my age, even though if you want to know how old I am, you'll have to look up Gary Vaynerchuk. But I could just relate. I'm thinking I was like YouTube. We all knew. I remember how stupid I thought it was. Boy, was I wrong, right?
I know, totally.
Yeah.
So those ways in which, I mean, that's a marketing answer, but like, it's so difficult to get attention and build an audience now. But it wasn't back then. And so that's certainly something I wish I had put effort towards back then.
That you wish you knew that you know now. So
right. And I didn't really start dressing the part until that tipping point of like year 4 or 5. And so I wish I didn't take. I sort of thought everything would come easier to me, and I was more casual back then. And so, I totally am on board with that first impressions matter. And so rarely at the office or with a client without being suited up and ready to go and being on point. And so those are all just like refining of your craft. And that sometimes those, I can't be too hard on myself that I didn't know it back then.
You're doing pretty well now. Yeah. Don't beat yourself up. You're doing all right. You and I met through your owner, Stacy Jones. Big shout out to Stacy, an incredible woman.
Love her.
And Dean Jones. But Stacy actually made the introduction and was like, you got to have Phil on the show. I mean, that alone. So you're standing out. And some of that is this podcast, which is also incredible. And the podcast, tell us a little bit more about, you've been doing that since August. You got that going. You're doing some incredible branding and positioning on that with tons of downloads. Tell us how you got started, how you're associated. I think it's released through Inman, or explain us to all of that and how your podcasting layout is set up.
Yeah. So like I was saying before, we have 2 episodes a month for the most part, and we interview local people about local topics. And so if you're an agent listening to this, and you probably won't be interested in our Seattle, coffee shop episode, but if you just want to give a few of them a listen, you can at least get an idea and some inspiration on how you might be able to do a local show like that. But our focus is local topics that are relevant, and then we distribute that online. And it's just like you said, it's a total positioning thing. I think if I could do it again, our Seattle's a very big city. And I think it would even be more successful if you picked, a neighborhood or a micro area within a big city, and really dove in on that. Because going back to the attention, how it's difficult to get attention, it's difficult to be all things to all people. And I think to some extent we kind of do that a little bit with our show. But
that's a great lesson to being a real estate agent in general.
Right. Absolutely.
Right.
But the best thing about
I think we should be all things to our client, but I think we should specify how we do and what we do to attract the client that we're going to be best at serving. But finish what you were saying. Well,
I mean, I haven't listened to every show of yours, but I've listened to quite a few, and I don't know anything about Atlanta, but I know you serve, one of the neighborhoods you serve is Buckhead, correct?
Buckhead and Brookhaven. Yep, because you've heard about it over and over again.
And yeah, but we don't know each other all that well yet,
right.
But I know where you serve, and so you have, I'm sure you go outside of Buckhead and Brookhaven on occasion, right?
Not very often, but yes.
If there's a good client or something,
I don't need
you would
to.
do that?
No,
okay.
Was that?
Okay,
But no, I'm kidding. But I'm only making a point. But no, I absolutely do, and I actually do usually find someone who specializes in that area to partner on with me if I do, because because I'm serious about it. But yeah. No, you're right.
But you really niching, chunking.
We were
down
just
your area.
having the conversation about that word, niche. We'll call it niching. Right. Yeah.
You really niching down in your area that you serve is not harmful to you, right? It's helpful to you. And so I think that's an important thing to remember. But I just want to say the best thing about podcasting is, and I don't know if you agree with this, but it's the people that you get in a room for an hour that you would never, ever, ever get a minute of their time otherwise. We had one of our guests was a former mayor, the last mayor of Seattle, and he's super down to earth. But he said something about, it was something about the travel ban when it came out, from the federal government, and he was tweeting about it. And I just said, hey, you want to come on our podcast and talk about your thoughts? And he said, sure. And so lo and behold, he rides his bike into our studio the next day, and we're sitting down with the mayor. And, there's a 1% chance this will happen. But at the end, we had talked about the NBA arena that is not trying to happen in Seattle. We lost our NBA team, and there's a billionaire trying to build an arena here, and the city is basically saying no. And Russell Wilson, the Seahawks quarterback, is a part of that group now, and he said, maybe we could, maybe I could try. He's friends with them, and he's like, maybe we could do a arena episode with Russell Wilson, and we both kind of looked at my co-host and I are like, is this guy serious?
Awesome.
So like within 48 hours, we're talking to the former mayor, and he's advocating for us to maybe get Russell Wilson on the show. Again,
that's incredible. Yeah.
The way things have played out with that process, I don't think that's going to happen, but it's just like that's the type of thing
Oh, I
that
think
you
it's
can all
going
of
to
a sudden
happen.
have.
I'm so ready for it to happen. I'm going to like download it and find it. Anyway.
But it's just one of those things where it puts you in the room with people that that want to share their story, but don't necessarily want to like go out to coffee with you, right? Like they'll come on your podcast, and so it's awesome.
And you get an
one of the
even
best
better
things about it.
conversation on podcasts because you've got an audience, so they know that. I mean, it's huge. Right. Love it.
Right. Totally.
That's incredible. I love that. So, what is your? I've got a couple. I always do this at the end. I'm like getting a couple of questions. Which ones do I really want to close out with? And I would say, well, first of all, what is the one thing you're most proud of in this business that you've done so far? Whether it's a deal or something you've learned or a life lesson or anything.
I think, I mean, this maybe is a little bit, I don't know if this is what you're expecting, but when I wanted to become a real estate agent and I had made that decision, with my wife, who was at the time, she was in grad school to be a counselor. And we kind of just made this decision like, well, what do you really want to do? Talking about my wife, and she wanted to stay home with the kids. And I was wanting to do something other than teaching, and it would have, like, that decision was made to go into real estate to have a career that could provide for a family by myself. And it, for a long time, it didn't seem like that would happen. But we're at that place now and have been for a while.
Awesome.
So that's not everybody's story, right? Like not everybody has to make that decision to stay home, have a stay-at-home parent. But for us, that was super important. And we're, I think that's, there are times where I wish I could do more and be better and all of those things. But that we sort of went down that path and made it work is something I'm pretty proud of.
I think that's a great story. And I think that's great to speak to, especially there are people that are breaking into the business that listen to this podcast. We've got all levels. But on that level, it's like, I'll just say when you get into this business, I was successful in 2 years. I was making well into six figures. But even so, everybody was like, wow, how did you do it? It didn't seem like that. I mean, especially that first year, it's just painful. It's just like, this just sucks. Like, I don't even know how. I can remember the feelings and the emotions and how hard it is to break into and all the things you don't expect and whatever. And just to hear somebody say that, like, wow, it's very doable to get in this. It really is. It's not just you don't just get lucky. You get in this and you do what it takes and it pays off, period.
Right.
That's awesome.
Right. Yeah.
What is your favorite in real estate? I've got some people who've got their favorite app, their favorite CRM, their favorite whatever. What's your favorite tool in the real estate business that helps you keep your level of success?
I'm pretty scattered with my tools. I love the podcast app. Like I went down my pathway to like growing my business even more the last few years because of things I've learned through podcasts like that I was listening to. So that the podcast idea comes up again.
Give us an example of what you've learned listening to podcasts that's grown your business.
Okay, so there's an older show. Do you know the Curator team?
I've heard of it. I've heard the name.
So they're kind
I'm
of an
embarrassed to
all-encompassing
say no. Yeah.
marketing firm. You should look them up. Chris Smith and Jimmy Mackin started this company where, there's all these different ways in which you can market online, right? And being agents are like, well, I just wish someone would do it all for me. And so they're like, okay, well, there's a business. And so they do everything for you. They're mainly focused on Facebook, but it's very expensive. Curator, yeah. I forget how it's spelled off the top of my head, but.
All right, team, watch out. Jere's getting on Curator.
It's and there's some really big agents that are on it. I think it's fit for like a team because they just generate so much business for you.
Cool.
But they had a podcast called The Water Cooler. It's now they've sort of ended that and gone into some more different content. But it was just they'd have these agents on that were doing digital marketing and doing these amazing things with their business and mainly marketing and how to attract people online. And I was just, this was about 3 years ago. I'm listening to this, binge listening to it, saying like, why am I still only sending out postcards? Like I should be doing other things too.
No kidding. Thank you so much for that. You're so right. I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
I think I'm actually, postcards. I'm gonna start. I think it's not just one thing, right? Like you have to do everything, and layer things in if you're a new agent, and build up to doing multiple different touch points. But that was just this like wake up call for me, saying like, okay, I'm technically a millennial. Why am I not, in those spaces that people that I would want to do business with are in also. And so that led me down the road to being, blogging more, Facebook ads, podcasting, the whole bit. So.
Yep. Awesome. All right. So we have not talked about, and I can't believe I almost missed this. So everything that you do is filled with a mantra that's on the wall in your office. And it says legendary, mindset, skill set, focus, and action.
Yeah.
Tell us what that's about.
So I have a really good friend, colleague that I share a little private office with, and we have for a number of years, Randall O'Dowd in Seattle. He's also with Realogics Sotheby's. And we were both Ninja coaching clients, and Ninja's mantra is mindset, skill set, focus, I believe. And we talk a lot. Like he and I, he's my buddy and love him to death. And we're always talking about, last night I texted him late at night and was like, hey, we should do this for G&E. And it's like, it'd be like a $10,000, $15,000 spend to like throw this big party. And we just like started like brainstorming over text last night. So like, we just like think about. I'm
looking for my invitation.
We throw stuff out and we see if it will help us.
Right.
And so that it just became our mantra of like, we wanted it on our wall. He, I think, came up with the idea of adding action, because it's not just about mindset, skill set, and focus. Like you actually have to do things.
Put action behind it. Yeah.
Correct. And then we always had this idea of like, what's legendary? And we just said, if we have an idea like that party would be legendary and expensive, we say, okay, is it legendary? And that's our filter. And if it's not, if we can't say, yeah, if we're hemming and hawing about it, then it's out, right? Or we need to improve it.
Right.
And so that became the word above the other four, because all four of those things, mindset, skill set, focus, and action, lead into you being a legendary agent, legendary person, having a legendary business. And it's, legendary is a big word, right? It's a big,
make it legendary, or it's like life. It should be legendary, or why are we here?
Totally.
We got one shot at this. Let's make it legendary.
Totally. So I love to improve and grow and tinker with my business and figure out what's the next thing I can implement to grow. And so those words are how I filter those decisions for sure.
So on those words, this kind of will bounce off of that a bit, is books. What book would you recommend reading?
So my favorite book, I knew you were going to ask this, so I'm kind of ready. Have you heard of the Slight Edge?
No.
Yeah, you should read it.
The Slight Edge.
Yeah, it's not going to win a Pulitzer Prize, but it's the message is awesome, and it's another way. I think it fits into a lot of these things I've been talking about. Do you want me to explain it? Do we have time?
Yes, please. Absolutely, go for it. No, you're good.
Basically, life is made up of small decisions and actions that are easy to do and easy not to do. And so, a classic example, right, is losing weight or gaining weight. You don't put on 100 pounds in a day, and one donut is not going to add 100 pounds, to your body.
Mm-hmm.
But one donut every day for the next 3 years is probably going to get you pretty close to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the same vein, like removing a donut from your diet every day is going to help you, but it's not that change and that result doesn't come immediately. And so whether you're saving money, whether you're working out, whether you're trying to grow a business, small incremental actions and decisions every day or frequently lead up to big change. And so you can be either on the upward trending slight edge curve or the downward trending slight edge curve. And these are things that are very easy to do, right? Like pick up the phone, text your friend, or not text your friend. And so you're either building
client, call your seller, or don't call your seller.
Exactly.
Actually, if you don't call your seller, they'll call you, and you'll be on the phone with them for an hour instead of that 3 minutes. That's actually 100%. A Buffini thing, or it's what he says all the time. So yeah, exactly.
100%, right? And like, save a part of your commission check or don't save a part of your commission check. Like those are easy things to do, and it doesn't have to be your whole commission check, and just can be a small bit. And so, I don't know. It's definitely plays into my like patience idea and long-term perseverance idea. But I think agents get into the business and like, okay, I'm overwhelmed with all these things I have to do. Well, you don't have to do them all at once. You just have to put one foot in front of the other, do a little bit each day, each week, each month, each year, and you get to the place you want to be. I know we talked about those rising rock stars that are killing it in the first year. I'm guessing that's not most people's story.
Exactly.
They end up on the podcasts and the shows and the YouTube channels and stuff, but so it seems like that's everybody. But I think most people, I'm hoping, can relate with kind of that steady everyday progress. So Slight Edge, it's a quick read.
Who's the author, or do you remember?
I think it's Jeff Olson, and I don't think he's written anything else except for Slight Edge.
Cool. I can't wait to read it.
It was actually given to me on a marriage retreat, believe it or not.
Oh, really? Well, that's good marriage advice too, actually. That's kind of, wow.
Relationships. A relationship's not built in a day. It's built over time. So
we're going to quote you on that. Isaac, did you write that? I got Isaac taking notes for me because I keep losing my pen. I know we have a pen. We have an inside joke about
pens. It's behind your
mic,
I think.
Is it really? Oh, see? There. There. Relationships aren't built in a day. Now I can do it myself. But I'm not a do-it-yourselfer. There's another joke about that one. Nobody can hear Isaac, but he's laughing hysterically. Love it. So, what is the one thing that you would want anyone listening to our interview today, or everyone listening to our interview today, what's the one thing you want them to remember from this interview, if there is one?
I mean, I feel like I'm a broken record, but I think that the more, if you understand where you want to go, then patience and perseverance and those small actions that every day get you there is how to kind of achieve your goal.
That's all.
And I mean, when I talk to new agents all the time, that's what I try to remind them is, hey, like, you got to. I know you don't see the results yet, but you have to keep doing what you're doing, because it's like we all understand that. Well, people often stop too soon, right? You stop farming your neighborhood too soon before that first call comes in. You stop, touring, or you get out of the business before your clients were just around the corner, and so.
Exactly.
I don't know. So that's the story of my career, and I always try to impart that to other people, that as long as you're doing the actions, and the business will come. So
exactly. Well, you said something really key that you said, I sound like a broken record, and you didn't to me, because when you said that about persistence and patience, you started that with, if you know where you're going. Like, decide. A lot of people don't know where they're going. Decide where you're going, and when you create that destination, the path can become much more clear. So it was huge.
Yeah, vision is a big thing. It's difficult to put yourself in a place to where you can think about where you want to go, and dream about where you want to go, because usually where we want to go doesn't seem attainable at first. If we use sort of our conscious mind, but like putting yourself in a place where you can sort of say, okay, 20 years from now, what do I want my life to look like? And that's in business, that's relationships with your kids, with your spouse, with your partner, whatever. You have to know what you want that to be, and then start executing on it.
Well, there's two things about that people say. We all think we can do more than a year than we can, but we always underestimate our ability of where we can get in 20. And the other one is what we think we can do in a year usually will take 3. It's just a matter of, back to what you said about, you've just got to keep doing it and got to keep going.
Right. For sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. This has been incredible. Long-awaited interview. I'm so glad to finally have you today. So thank you so much, Phil.